Good morning and welcome to everybody that is joining us today for this special live event. We are going to wait just a couple minutes so that everybody can come in and join us and we can get started all at the same time. I'm super excited about today and I hope you are too. I want you to find that chat box over on the right-hand side of your screen and let me know your name and where you are logging in from while we are waiting for everybody to join us. My name is Lisa Shomo. Just so you know, I am Senior Manager of Content Marketing here at Viome. Oh my goodness, here we go. Here's people. Patrick, Hang, Sharon, Danine, Pamela, oh my goodness, Camilla, Jan, Gertrude Elizabeth, Brenda, Fletcher, Natalie. I'm missing people because it's going so fast. Oh my goodness, Karen. We already have many people across the pond. We have even people from South Africa, Angela, Miranda, Marco, Dan. Wow, it's so nice to have everybody here this morning. It's a great way to start off your morning today to be here with us, and I'm so glad that you are. Jade, Joy, Siva, Charlene, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to give it probably another 30 seconds to a minute, and then we can get started. Wendy and Stacy, Margaret, Hura, welcome so much to the room. So glad to have you here. Dan in Alaska, beautiful state. I have visited there before. And who else do we have? We have Sonia, we have Moji, we have Mariel, we have Nicole, Hansel, Ricardo, Gertrude Elizabeth from Switzerland. Excellent. Europe on the map. Fantastic. Philippe from Mississippi. Hello. Basim from Vancouver, Canada. So our neighbor to the north. Excellent. Hi, Marie, Loanne, Palm Desert, Denise from Texas, Neelam from Vancouver, Canada. Excellent. Vera from Hong Kong. Wow. Other side of the pond. Well, welcome. Sochi from San Diego and Lisa. Hello, Lisa from Indiana. Mariana from Miami and Nanor from California. Awesome. All right. Marianne and Sarah. All right. So I think it's okay to get started. A few more people will probably be filtering in as they're logging into the chat there. So I am officially going to start it. Hello, officially. Welcome to our live event for today. Find your moonshot. It's a great topic to begin the new year with. And happy 2024 to everyone. All right, we're going to move this forward. So I have two very special individuals here with me today. And they are going to have a little fireside chat on this subject of finding your moonshot. I'm going to do introductions and then turn the conversation over to them. First, I'm sure many of you have had the chance to hear Viome's founder and CEO, Naveen Jain, speak before today. But if not, I am so happy that you are here. You were able to join us today. Thank you for being here, Naveen.
Oh, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. And our next face here is new to the webinar room, and she is our special guest and friend of Viome, CEO of Nanit, Sarah Dorsett. I am very excited to have you here with us today, Sarah.
Thank you, Lisa.
And in a fun twist, Sarah is going to take over the hosting duties. So why don't I turn things over to you, Sarah?
Thank you so much, Lisa. I am so thrilled to be here. As you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Nanit, but I am a proud supporter and friend of Viome, and I consider Naveen to be a very close personal friend as well. So very excited to be here. I'm actually also extremely excited that I get to interview you for this particular topic. Ever since I have known you, Naveen, we've gotten to know each other. So just a little history, we've gotten to know each other over the past year. I think we've been pretty aligned on vision in general, the mission that we both stand for our own personal values. And it's just something that I think helped us develop a really strong relationship over the last year. But since I've known you, I have been so inspired by you, everything that you've done in your personal life and in your career, all that you've accomplished. And I've always considered you such a very, very special person for all that you've done. So I am very excited to be able to talk to you a little bit more about all the things
Sarah,
that get me
first
so
of all,
excited.
all these kind things you're saying about me, it makes me blush. And as you know, it's really, really hard to get an Indian man to blush.
Look at you. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Anyway, well, you know this. I've talked to you about this before, but just to kind of get started, because I know this whole conversation is about Moonshot. I actually, interestingly enough, even in my own career, have not heard that. Just started learning about that term and trying to understand how it applied to the things that I do. And it's been such an amazing kind of personal journey for me. So I would love, because you really own that, and so you embody the moonshot, for me at least, and I think for so many others. I would love to hear more about how you think about moonshot and how it differs from what many of us think of as maybe personal or professional goals.
Sure. Absolutely. First of all, Lisa, do you mind just getting rid of the slides so I can talk to Sarah and everyone can see Sarah rather than slides? Okay, perfect. All right. So, Sarah, first of all, so glad to be here with you. And I'm going to reciprocate and say that you have been just one amazing, inspiring woman. It is so hard in this world to see women who are role models. When I look at our daughter and she is looking to be a successful CEO, she needs a role model like you. And then she always said that the first job, when she graduated from Stanford, she said, Dad, I'm moving to New York and I'm going to find a great women CEO that I can work for and learn. And that's it. And I'm going to find a company that's making a tremendous impact on humanity. And I'm going to go do that. Now, so I'm so glad that you are there for inspiring millions of women who go out there and wonder how can they succeed in this man's world. Well, the truth is told is that it is really a women's world, and man just happened to be a pretty face around it. Right? It is.
Thank you for those words, though.
Yeah, but now coming back to the moonshot. Moonshot are these audacious ideas that on surface they look difficult, if not impossible. It is like, when your mother who loves you and tells you you can do anything you want, sky is the limit. And in her mind, that sky is something, a hurdle and a barrier that you see and you cannot cross. And what's magical thing about sky is nothing but a figment of our imagination. There is no physical thing called sky. And once we get closer to it and we realize it was all in our mind and there was no sky, you never go from here to moon and say, hey, mom, I just passed the sky. There is no sky, right? So point is how many of these sky that we create in our own lives, right? Every time we believe I'm a person who's poor, I can't achieve that. That's my sky. That's my limit. That's my ceiling. Until you get there and you realize it was all in your own mind, right? My story is no different than any other immigrant's story, which is we come here with absolutely nothing. And we have this unbelievable belief in ourselves. We have unbelievable belief in the universe that somehow magically universe is going to align itself and make our dreams come true. And we all go through that path. And the difference really is the mindset and the belief and unbelievable faith in the universe that it is going to happen. Now, so moonshots are these audacious ideas that look very, very difficult, but they are in fact easier to do than something small. And what I find most fascinating is a bigger and audacious ideas are easier to do than something small. And I think your journey, Sarah, and I want to hear from you as well, is that journey of someone who said it could be done. How do you take a company and build an unbelievably great company because you believed you can, not because someone told you that you can't, right?
Well, I mean, to answer, I think for me, when anybody asks me kind of that question, and it's funny because I've told this question to people or I've answered this question maybe in the wrong settings before, and I've gotten kind of some side eyeing, but I have always, as I've self-reflected, felt like in order to achieve an audacious goal, I had to accept the fact that I wasn't quite the person yet who could achieve it. And so becoming that person is the journey for me personally that I have to allow myself to be.
Yeah.
So every single year I look back, if I just take Nanit was different every single year, completely different. It was a completely different company every single year. And I look back and I think, wow, I don't even know who I was then, and if you can look back and say, I don't even recognize myself because I have transformed into something that, I have leaned into a place that could not be imagined yet, necessarily, or wasn't real yet, couldn't be copied or replicated. I'm synced with you on kind of the mindset idea of it all. How do you know it's a moonshot though versus just a goal? Like, what's the difference when you're evaluating?
Very, very good question. So first thing is, to be is something that I call a moonshot. You ask yourself, is this something that I'm willing to dedicate my life to? Is this something that is going to impact billions of people live a better life, right? So always say, God forbid I am actually successful in solving this problem. Would it help a billion people live a better life? Because if you do anything, I don't care what it is, if it helps million people, 100 million people, a billion people live a better life, you can create an amazingly great enterprise. And I think what really goes wrong is a lot of the people and a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who are working for other companies, they somehow believe that you wake up in the morning wanting to be rich, wanting to make money. And they forget that making money is simply a byproduct of doing things that improve other people's life. That means every day when you wake up, you ask yourself, what would I do today that will improve other people's lives? And when you wake up one day, you will realize that you have created an unbelievably great value for the humanity and unbelievably great value for your family, right? But it is about doing good and doing well, and they're not mutually exclusive. In fact, the only way to do well for yourself is to do a good for humanity. So always ask yourself, does it help the people who are going to be using my service? And the second part of this whole moonshot idea is that, are you willing to die for it? Is this something you're willing to dedicate every single minute of your life to achieving? Is this something when you wake up in the morning makes you jump out of the bed? And the reverse of it is, when you wake up in the morning and if you're not jumping out of the bed, then you should actually quit what you're doing, because you know that is not your moonshot. That is not your North Star. Now, this idea that I always run with, and I think a lot of people misunderstand that, is we are always told since we are young, Sarah, that, you have to have a passion for doing things. You have to have passion. And what I realize is passion is for hobbies. Passion is for losers, right? The true winners have obsession, and not obsession for a thing, not obsession for a person, not obsession to make money, the obsession to solve problems. And that obsession is what becomes their moonshot, right? So having that obsession, and I see you in Sarah, every time I talk to you, you have this unbelievable burning desire to solve that problem. And that obsession, you talk about it until the last second. You go to bed and you jump out of the bed you and I think alike. We get up at 4 a.m.
I know. I talk about the same thing over and over and over. The problem I want to solve, yes.
Yeah, and that's the point, is that, so interestingly, if I may talk about some of the spiritual side of the story, and I think you will probably resonate with that, is that it is, we are a bundle of energy, and we are part of this universal energy. Call that universal intelligence, call that God, call whatever you want. It is essentially a one big energy, and we are a pile of energy in ourselves, right? So think of it. We are made of atoms, just like anything else. Human body is made of atoms. Atoms are made of, electrons and protons. What are they made of? Quarks. What are the quarks made of? Essentially, but in wave energy and stuff. Even though it looks like we are one single body, we are just a floating energy, and our haptic sensors actually make us believe that we are solid, right? But the point is, When we constantly are thinking about one thing, it is actually sending that energy and the wave to the universe. And the other people who are aligned with the same energy is start to vibrate and resonate. And suddenly you build a team around you that you're able to find and achieve your mission. So the idea is for your conscious mind to keep creating the thought process that makes your subconscious mind to start believing in it and constantly sending the energy to the universe. And next thing you know, that you're finding people who can help you achieve your mission. And that's the part is this mastermind idea, the idea of finding people around you who complement you in everything you do to help you achieve your goals.
I have definitely experienced that kind of tractor field that you're talking about.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it feels like everybody who's popping up in my life is a certain type of person, and it's just kind of mushrooming and getting bigger and bigger. So I absolutely believe in that. I've always believed in it. I think you articulate it and you embody it, and you can prove it almost through your life experiences, you personally, which is why I think so much of what you say resonates so much with me. I also love the difference between passion and obsession, because it is hard to explain, hard to help people understand passion. Truly being passionate about something can fall into so many different categories, but truly being obsessed about solving a problem is a very, very different approach to take. So I also know your story, and I might veer off just a little bit. And I know that you did take that leap of faith in your career, and you've maybe done it a few times when it comes to that obsession and that burning desire to make sure that you chase it at all costs. I think maybe I'll switch gears just a little bit and ask you a little bit about how that entire process happened for you, for Viome specifically.
And I think, whether it's a Viome or a Moon Express, or pick any company that I have started, for every company that I start, I ask myself the same three questions. Why this? Why now? Why me? And why this is a simple thing that I already talked about. You ask yourself that whatever it is you're trying to do as a next venture, as a next project, if it is successful, would it help 1 billion people live a better life? And because that tells you that it is a worth doing. And if you're successful, it is a cause that's worth spending your decade, 2 decades of your life doing. The second part of the puzzle really is interesting, which is why now? Because a lot of these problems have existed for a long time, whether it's malnutrition, whether it is poverty, whether it is climate change, it's been happening for a long time. Why now? And why now are essentially the two parts to the puzzle. One is what had changed in the last 1 or 2 years, but more importantly, what do you expect to happen in the next 3 to 5 years that will allow you to solve the problems at scale in 3 to 5 years? And this problem could not have been solved 5 years ago. That means you're really intercepting these exponential growing technologies and taking advantage of tomorrow's technologies to solve tomorrow's problem, not using yesterday's technology to solve tomorrow's problem, right? And then you can literally take any massive, audacious problem. The trick is people get overwhelmed and they say, this can't be done. And I think the thing that I have learned is you break the problem into very small pieces of the problem, right? So, for example, you say, I want to live on Venus. That's a goal. I want to live on Venus. And you don't say, oh, that's not going to happen. You simply say, what are the problems that have to be solved for me to live on Venus? And you say, okay, the first thing is I have to be able to leave the Earth surface to go to the Earth orbit. Got it. Second is I want to be able to travel from Earth orbit all the way to Venus orbit. Got it. Third is we have to be able to land on Venus. Got it. And the fourth is to be able to live and create a habitat on Venus, right? And now you say, okay, there are only 4 problems. Going to the Earth orbit, that problem has been solved. We call them a rocket, and there are many companies are doing it. Checkbox. Well, now going from Earth orbit to Venus orbit, we know we have gone to Moon, we have gone to Mars, and we in fact have horizon that has gone beyond our solar system now. So that means, yeah, it is, we have done it. Yes, if we're taking humans with us, maybe we'll have to modify it a bit. We'll have to figure out some of the things, but it's an incremental problem. Now you say landing on Venus. Well, we landed on Mars 3 different ways. We did the bouncing ball, we did the crane, and we did the parachute. And we managed to get to the Mars landing safely. Now, we could say, well, Venus has slightly lighter atmosphere than Mars. Maybe we'll have to modify it a bit, but it's an incremental problem. It is not something that can't be done. Now, the last problem is really about how do we live on the moon? And that brings me to the last question, why me? And why me is probably the most important thing. So if you're listening to this, this is the place where most entrepreneurs and most people go wrong, which is, what questions are you asking that are different from what everyone else in the industry is asking? Because the questions you ask is the problem you solve. And one of the things I admire most about you, Sarah, is you get down to the problem. Here is the question I'm going to ask. And because the way you frame the question tells you exactly what problems need to be solved, right? And I'm going to give you 3 examples because this really is something that is so important because people just don't understand what you mean by asking the right question. So let's assume we say, I want to solve world hunger. Sure, why not? Right? And every time, good one, right? Let's say world hunger. So you ask any expert who's trying to solve a world hunger problem, they'll tell you, well, we have to grow food efficiently. And if you're really an expert, you will say, well, we have plenty of food. It is distributed poorly, and we have to come up with an easier way of distributing the food where it is grown to the people who need it, because a lot of wastage of food that happens during transportation. We have to be able to solve the problem of wastage of food. Mm-hmm. Now, those are all incrementally way of solving the problem. What if you were to ask, why do we eat food? Simply asking the question why we eat food changes everything, because you realize the food is only needed for energy and actually for nutrition. And there are many ways human body can get energy, whether it's through photosynthesis like plants, or whether it is bacteria. There are bacteria, Sarah, that grow in radioactive nuclear waste. What does that mean? That means they have now figured out how to protect their DNA from radiation and use radiation as a source of energy. And what if we can use CRISPR and modify our cells so we don't need any more of these suit to protect ourselves from radiation? And you can just simply go out and say, honey, do you want to go out and get some radiation, instead of going out and eat pizza? And suddenly you have a solution that never existed before, right? But it is not just that. Think about, let's assume you say, I want to solve climate change. Sure. And everyone who talks about climate change will say, look, it is the humans that cause the problem. And I'm not denying that humans haven't actually changed the balance. But remember, 90% of all the carbon that is actually emitted in the atmosphere comes from forest fires, comes from volcanoes, and it comes from composition of leaves and organic material that falls. And 90%, 10% comes from all the fossil fuels, all the industry, everything that we do is 10%. Now, we as humans have this tendency, we created the problem, so we're going to chip away this at 10% and trying to reduce it to 9% and 8%. What if we say, why not use the human creativity to get rid of 90% of the problems that are caused? And if we can even do 10% of that, we removed everything that humans have ever done, right?
We offset it, right? Yes.
Right. And think about it. Now we already have 5,000 low Earth satellites just from SpaceX, right? Now imagine there are going to be another 5,000-10,000 that Amazon is doing. There are going to be tens of thousands of low Earth satellites in the orbit, watching every inch of every area on Earth. If we can simply use them to detect the earliest possible fire and eliminate that fire right away, we would in fact get rid of all the problems that we have in terms of carbon emission, right? Now, that is just one. What if we can stop the volcanoes from erupting, right? People say, how do you do that? Well, why do they erupt? They erupt because there's a tremendous amount of pressure that gets built up. And what if you can release the pressure like a pressure cooker, release the pressure slowly, so they never, ever erupt. And these are the ways of solving problems that has never been done. Now, bringing back to Viome, and I want to apply, because you asked me why I started Viome. So I want to apply the same 3 questions that I asked myself and to start Viome. And I'm going to then ask you a question after that because I've been talking way too much.
Okay, well, this is why I love talking to you, because all of that was absolutely fascinating. So yes.
So I asked myself, about 7 years ago, there is this biggest problem facing humanity is the health of humanity. Every one of us knows someone or us in our lifetime is going to develop these chronic diseases. And we call them diabetes, we call them heart disease, we call them dementia, Alzheimer, we call them depression and anxiety, we call them autoimmune diseases, we call them cancer. And these are the diseases that we believe it's something that is, we call bad luck. It is happens to us because it is how it is, right? And I said, what if we can understand the changes that happen in the human body at the onset of these diseases and during the progression of these diseases? If we know exactly what causes them to happen, we can prevent the diseases from happening, we can intercept and stop the progression, and God forbid, outright reverse them. And we said, look, this is possible now because no one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, honey, I was out with the boys last night. I think I might have caught diabetes. You don't catch diabetes. You don't catch obesity. You don't wake up one day and say, I think I'm obese. It is something that happens over 10, 15, 20, 30 years of time. Yes. And that means there is constantly changing. So that was the fundamental thing was we said, what if we could do that? Would it help 1 billion people live a better life? And the answer is 8 billion people. Every one of us could get better if we could solve this problem. Check mark. The second part was, why now? And we said to solve this problem, there are 3 things that must happen. We have to be able to digitize the human body, right? And once we digitize, we understand everything that's happening in the human body. Then we have to be able to process massive amount of data. And then we have to be able to use AI to be able to understand what is changing when people are not sick and when they become sick. What are the changes that are happening in the human body? And if we can do that, we can solve this problem. And that's literally, we said, okay, the cost of digitization, when we did 7 years ago, Sarah, one sample was $1,000 or $1,100. We took a deep breath and said, wow, that cannot help 1 billion people with that high cost. But we realized that cost has come down from millions of dollars, billions of dollars, to $100,000, to $10,000, to $1,000. And in the next 3 to 5 years, it has to come down to $100. Guess what? 5 years later, that cost did not come down to $100. It came down to $15. Right? And suddenly we realized that even though we were 10 times optimistic, it turns out we were actually 5 or 6 times pessimistic. So and that's the problem with exponential technologies, that we just cannot, we incrementally think it's coming down, and boom, it was $15. Same thing happened to the cost of processing. We realized we will never have access to supercomputers, but we'll have access to cloud computing. So we fired up cloud computers, cost us $45, and we said, wow, that's too much. And we thought, look, it has come down from a couple of $100. It's going to be down to $10 in 3 years. It came down to $1.50, right? And that's the beauty of these things, are the costs were coming down. So we realized that if we launch a company, when we are ready to scale, the cost will come down. And that's the reason when we launched the company, the product used to cost $900. And today we are able to sell that for $150, right? And that tells you that by knowing what was happening with the technology, we were able to actually, in fact, achieve the results we wanted. The biggest problem was, question I asked myself was, why me? And why me was, again, the most important part. I realized that everyone in the industry was focused on asking the same wrong question. They believed it is a bad luck. My genes are my destiny. Everyone thought the only way to solve the problem was to understand your DNA. And it was such a naive thing, because I am not an expert, and we're going to come back and talk about that, why not being a non-expert is better than being an expert. And you are a prime example of that. So I'm going to come to that in a second. We realized that, Sarah, that when you're born with a DNA, And suddenly, when you develop a diabetes, your DNA hasn't changed. So why is it suddenly my DNA is causing? So DNA cannot be a culprit because it doesn't change when you become diabetic. It doesn't change when you become obese. It doesn't change when you have a depression. It doesn't change when you have a heart disease. In fact, even after you die, and if I were to look at your DNA 100 years after we die, it's the same DNA. We can look at the DNA of dinosaurs. So DNA can't even tell you you're dead or alive. How will it ever tell you you're healthier or sicker? And we say, wow, that can't be the problem. What is constantly changing is not your genes, but your gene expression. And what if we can measure your gene expression? So that was the first thing, was we are going to focus on RNA or gene expression and not the DNA. The second part of the thing was we realized that we as humans, now this is really surprising, was 99% of all the genes that are expressed in our body don't come from our mom and dad. They come from these microbes that live inside our gut, in our mouth, all over our body. 100 trillion of these microbes producing 99% of all the genes in our body. And we have completely ignored it. And we say, wow, what if we can understand what these microbes are producing, not which microbes are there? Because every company in the microbiome space, and this is something most people need to know, microbiome, everyone is now talking about gut microbiome. And every company other than Viome only can tell you what organism or what bacteria are in your gut. They can never tell you what these bacteria are producing. Because when you look at all technology, which is called metagenomics, which is looking at DNA, can tell you there is an organism in your gut. They can tell you if it's dead or alive. That means it's coming from the food you ate or it's actually in your gut. It can never tell you what they are producing. So they can never tell you, is this good for you or bad for you? So for example, we realize if we can find out what these bacteria are producing and how it is impacting our immune system and our body, we can find a way, the right foods, right supplements to stop these diseases from happening and prevent them and reverse them and diagnose them early, right? That was the main thing, was, and diagnose them early. And now interesting thing is today, 7 years later, we can in fact tell you very precisely, hey, Sarah, we just analyzed your body and we saw that your sulfide production in your gut is very high. And that's causing a lot of inflammation that we see. You should not eat broccoli and cabbage because they're very high in sulfate. And that sulfate is going to be metabolized by our gut and is going to produce more sulfide. Stop eating that. We noticed that your uric acid production is too high. Even though everyone thinks avocado is a superfood, it is actually going to turn into a gout for you because avocado will produce a lot of uric acid. So don't eat avocado right now. We noticed that your oxalates are not being metabolized properly. So don't eat spinach because it's extremely high in oxalates. So despite Popeye telling you that spinach is good for everyone, Popeye was not a scientist, so don't do that, right? And we can literally go through every one of them. If your bile acid is high, we can say don't eat turmeric. Or if you have, so point, we can very precisely tell you what food you should eat and why, what foods you should not eat and why. What are the body needs nutrients? What is the vitamin, minerals, herbs, digestive enzymes, amino acids, probiotics, prebiotics? What do you need? And we custom make them for you, only the ingredients you need in the dosages that you need. And here's the thing. People say, how do you know it works? Well, that's literally what we set out to solve. So we actually do studies. And a month ago, Sarah, we published a study in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine that people who actually followed our diet and supplements within 6 months, their IBS, 15% of the population suffers from IBS, stomachache, digestion issues, gas, bloating. Their IBS clinical score came down by 47%. Their depression came down by over 40%. Their anxiety came down by 37%. And their diabetes, HbA1c came down by 30%. Simply using food and supplements. And Sarah, we just are going to be publishing 2 more studies that are randomized, placebo-controlled study that show a similar effect on people getting placebo and our supplements, improving depression, improving anxiety, improving diabetes. Now, this is now, no one can say, does it work? Because if it works like a placebo-controlled study, you can't argue, does it work? And to me, what's most important was now we have analyzed over 650,000 samples, and that is allowed us to detect early stage cancer. Just from saliva, we are able to detect stage 1 cancer in your mouth or throat with a 95% specificity and 90% sensitivity. Tests like Grail, their sensitivity is 24% for stage 1 cancer. And the reason is because they use DNA. They look for cell-free DNA. RNA changes at the onset, so we can detect very early stage cancer. And that was the most meaningful thing for me, because this is the beginning of all other detecting other cancers and other diseases like IBD and others. And Sarah, everyone has why. And for me, I saw my dad die from pancreatic cancer. And to me, that was a change of life for me. His cancer wasn't detected until he was stage 4. And when he was dying, I said, Dad, I don't know if I can do much. I wish we could have detected it earlier. And I said, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that no one else has to suffer from this, what you're going through. And that gave me a plenty motivation to start Viome. And when I see today that we are able to do that, it brings a tremendous amount of joy and a pleasure to see that my dad is watching me do the things that I set out to do.
That is incredible. I think what I really love about Viome, not only the science and the gene expression, and I think it is the technological advancements of AI that allow you to process. That's the piece, and I know that from my past, from being from watching AI evolve over the years, and then leveraging it for Nanit for the last 5 years. The amount of information that can be processed can allow us to make those nonlinear leaps, like you said with the drops in price. Same thing. You can make these enormous leaps, and Viome, for me, for my husband, and I hope for so many others, really is intended to be a lifestyle. Because even though you might say today, and that's what this gene expression is so important, even though you might say, what I love about it so much, what you might say today, you can't eat broccoli. A year from now, you might be able to, because your microbiome is changing. So you really kind of taking control of how you're making really specific choices based on the information you're receiving, and then being able to then rediscover how that's impacted you. And it takes away all limitations, really, from it puts health in your own hands. And being able to take control of things like that, and having that freedom and that flexibility is really what Viome offers. And it is freeing, I think, overall, so that you can focus on your moonshot once you take care of all of your health. And I would love to ask you actually that question. How important is health to your bringing it all the way back to the moonshot discussion? How do you think about health and moonshot?
Well, first of all, Sarah, you and I both know that without health, there is nothing, because person who is sick has only one wish, and people who are healthy have many wishes, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, that without health is your wealth. And I think, as you said, taking control of your own health, becoming the CEO of your own health. When you feel helpless and hopeless, someone is going to victimize you. Because when they realize you're helpless and hopeless, and today our medical industrial complex makes money because when we are sick, and no one makes money when we are healthy. And I'm not saying they're bad people, but the incentives are not well aligned. Mm-hmm. When we are sick, and if we have a chronic disease, every single person in the medical industrial complex has a button that's called ka-ching, a lifetime subscriber coming up. Right? That means for the rest of your life, you're going to be taking a medicine. They don't want to cure you. They just simply want to suppress the symptom so you can continue to have to stay on their drug for the rest of your life. Right? That has to stop. And the only way to stop is, as you said, is to understand what's happening. And this is not for life. It's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So just because one food is bad for you, it's not, broccoli doesn't suit me. Well, it doesn't suit you today,
Mhm.
but as your body changes, 6 months from now, when you retest and say, oh, you can eat all the broccoli you want, you're totally fine now, right?
Mhm.
And there'll be a different food that may actually be impacting. So some people say, well, how long do I have to do that? It's like asking, hey, I exercised last year. Do I have to still exercise again? Right?
Yes.
I mean, do I have to still work out? Do I still have to walk? Can I just now sit on the sofa and just not do anything?
I
So
think the
point
choice
is,
becomes so easy when you have to look at the alternatives, right?
yeah.
So
So Sarah, the question back to you now. I have been talking too much. Here you are. I mean, you are, role model for so many women around the world for what you have done. Uh, and I look at the things that you from outside in about how much the Viome has impacted you, your family, your friends, and all the people around you. As you look at life going forward, there's going to be a day where you're going to be able to say, I want to do something like Viome in my life. Don't you think I could ask you to come join us one day?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the answer is like 100% yes. I mean, I'm so fortunate today to even be able to be involved in it. So yes, the answer is undoubtedly yes. Even the small piece that I've had access to through you, and the product itself is just it's. I will say that I haven't talked a lot about my past, but I do use today. I focus on babies.
Yeah.
I'm a mom, and I have watched how having an understanding of something that's unknown, a baby who can't speak, can't tell
Yeah.
you what's wrong. And what Nanit does is help you understand what's going on, particularly around a baby's development and sleep. And when a parent starts to understand what's going on with their individual baby, their behaviors start to change. And it's been so amazing to watch those behaviors change over time. And it's been such a positive experience for me. And I look at Viome the exact same way, but on a global scale. This is for every single human. This should be the way of life for humanity going forward. It just allows us to control all the choices we make and feel great, so that we can ultimately go and change the world even further. We can now go to Venus because we've solved our personal health problems. We are now in a state of mind where we are in the best possible physical, mental, psychological state we can be. So it's unlimited. It's unlimited what you can solve once there's enough people in the world feeling that way, so they can refocus their energy to all of the things that you talked about earlier.
So Sarah, one question is for those of us who don't, iHeart is asking, can someone tell me what Sarah actually does today?
What I do today?
Yeah.
You mean job
Just
wise?
brief discussion. Basically, they want to know what Nanit is. So
Yeah.
if you can do in a
I
couple of
think
minutes, what
yes. So for those of you who don't know, because a lot of people, you have to be in a certain space in your life. You have to be starting a family. So what Nanit is an advanced baby monitor. It's sort of the number one baby monitor today. And what it was built, it wasn't built as a baby monitor though. It was built as a technology. So Nanit was built, there was a technology built that basically the theory was, if you could watch what was going on in a baby's crib continuously over time, you would learn all of the different ways that a baby was developing, and also understand their sleep patterns. And you'd be able to solve some pretty stressful problems that parents have when they first, especially if you're a new parent, when you first bring a new baby home. So the sleep problem was kind of where it started. How do we get parents and babies sleeping better right away? Because if you're not sleeping, you almost feel intoxicated. There's that moment where you're just like, if it goes on long enough, you really don't feel like yourself. Again, this goes back to health and how you feel. Once you solve the sleep problem, everything else gets a little easier. All those decisions you have to make, your brain is working better, your family's feeling happier, you're feeling more confident as a new parent. But over time, after we collected billions upon billions of data points, and we ran all of these algorithms, we started to understand that we could actually see when a baby changed, when they were going to hit a new milestone, we could actually help parents understand that everything was going just fine. Your particular baby is just fine. There's all that anxiety about what happens next because you're not getting that feedback. You know, if you're not raising an adult, you're raising a baby who can't speak yet. And so all of the anxiety that I saw, and just the connection, because it is a connected device, I just saw parents coming together around their baby's health, instead of this kind of tilt into one parent or the other, really feeling like they were responsible for it. And so technology for me, that was eye-opening. That was my moonshot. That was technology can really be leveraged to change our lives in such a meaningful way at a personal level, because so much couldn't be done down to the personal level. And so teaching people how to leverage information so that they can make choices for themselves became my moonshot.
Love that, Sarah. Love that. And I was thinking was that we have a few minutes left here, Sarah. Maybe one of the things that I was going to just maybe talk about to people that who are listening to this, that you want to live healthy, and you want to live healthy for as long as you live, whether it is 100 years or 500 years or 5,000 years. It is not simply about longevity. It is about health span. That means living healthy until the last day of your life. No, I mean, my goal would be to die on that top of the Mount Everest. Is not because I was there, it's because I was able to climb it on the day I died. Right? And that's really the goal you want to be able to have, that you want to be so healthy that you are able to do everything you want until the day you drop off, right? And what is it that takes for you to live healthy for the rest of your life? And what I learned is there are 5 things, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So there's a hierarchy of needs for longevity. And there are 5 things you have to do to stay long and healthy. And I want to just give that as my 2024 moonshot for everyone here. So number 1 at the bottom is nutrition. Because unless you have a proper nutrition, nothing matters. So once, and the reason is, if you have a Ferrari, and if you don't put the right fuel in the Ferrari, it's just not going to drive well. So think of yourself as an amazing racehorse, amazing Ferrari, and you got to fuel the right way for it to work. And that's really where my first moonshot was. Viome really is getting that personalized nutrition for you. And once you have done that, then you can get to the second level, because until you do that, nothing matters. The second part of the thing is, once you've done that, is called stress reduction or stress management. You got to reduce stress, because your body, when it's stressed, it goes into fight or flight response, right? So as we were evolving, when we got stressed was because we were being chased by a tiger. And our body, when it's in the fight or flight response, it does a couple of things. It says, let's get rid of all the non-essential things in my body. Don't worry about digesting your food. So it shuts down the digestive system. You say, don't worry about digesting your food, because you're going to be lunch for someone else very soon. So run. And so it stops the digestion. It shuts down your immune system. It shuts down literally everything, pumps the adrenaline in your body, and you're ready to run or ready to fight, right? And in that way, that is what stress does. And stress was a good thing, because if there was no stress, we couldn't run away from the tiger, and the human species will become extinct, right? So stress is what saved us. What's happening in today's lives is, we don't have just stress when we're being chased by a tiger. We have a chronic stress, right? Your boss stresses you out. You go home, your spouse stresses you out, right? And all around there is a constant
your
amount
family,
of stress. Family, everybody's stressing you out.
Yes, the news.
That means, so news is stressing you out, and that's really the biggest problem. Is CNN. I call them a crisis news network. If there is a crisis, there is a news network for you, right? They literally are all about bad news, and there is a reason for that. Our brain evolved. There is a part of our brain called amygdala. Amygdala is designed to look for negative news, because if there was a negative news and you missed it, your gene pool got wiped out. And you missed the positive news, nothing bad happened, right? So we are constantly looking for negative news. And that's why the news industry realized, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Give them a blood, murder, rape, everything, and people want to know about it, right? And so the point was, now, what we do as humans is we realize that when you are eating and you're stressed, you can't digest your food. So we came up with a way to say, hey, before we eat food, let's do the gratitude, let's do the prayers, let's, and because to bring the body from parasympathetic mode into the sympathetic mode into parasympathetic mode. So, and that will allow you to go away from fight or flight response into digesting your food. So main thing you have to do is whatever it takes to remove your stress, whether it is meditation, whether it is breathing, whether it is sometimes getting rid of the source of stress, whether it is your job or whatever at home, find a way to get rid of that stress, right?
Yes.
That's one. Focus, right? The third really is exercise, movement. You don't have to be a gym rat. You don't need 8 hours of pumping iron. You just need a good 30 minutes of fast walking to get your heart rate up, get enough steps, and it's really about moving your body. Get up every hour, move. Body is designed to walk 5-6 miles a day, and that's what you need to do. If you can do a high incline, even better. So go up the hill, but get 4 or 5 miles a day every single day. The fourth is sleep. And it is really, really important because sleep is what really gets rid of the toxins from your body. Sleep is what allows your body to repair itself. Sleep is what allows all the stuff to form. The short-term memory becomes a long-term memory. Now, like many things in life that we can talk about, it is more is not best. It is the quality matters more than quantity. So don't go for quantity, go for quality. And that means knowing how much of REM sleep are you getting, how much of deep sleep are you getting. If you can get hour and a half of REM sleep and hour and a half of deep sleep, that is what your body needs. And if you can get them in 4 hours, my hats off to you. Some people need 5 hours, some people need 6 hours, some people need 7, some need 8. But really getting that. And Sarah, it is so important. I wear my Oura Ring. I have my Apple Watch. I have a mattress called 8 Sleep that measures my sleep.
Yes.
And under the mattress, I also have Withings pad that measures my sleep. I need to know how am I sleeping because that's important to me. And I need to make sure that I'm getting enough REM sleep and enough deep sleep. Now, you and I are very fortunate in a way that, I go to bed by 9 o'clock and I get up by 4. So yes, but in that 7 hour, I'm able to get a very good, sometimes I get 2 hours, 2 hours of deep sleep, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy, right? So that's really important. The fifth is purpose. People who live life for purpose tend to live 10 to 15 years longer than the people who have no purpose. So find yourself something that you're willing to die for and then live for it. Every minute of your day, ask yourself, what are you willing to dedicate your life to? And then you dedicate your life to it, right? And if you do that, you're not only going to live long, you're going to live healthy until the last day of your life.
Well, I think that is the perfect ending. I will say, on your car note, I'm not going to ask you what kind of car you drive with your example. Number two, anecdotally before we end, I think within the first 10 minutes of meeting you, you taught me those 5 things. So, I love hearing you walk them through. They're so inspiring. They're one of the things that inspired me most in our very first conversation. So thank you for sharing that with everyone who came today. It was great to have some time with you and to just hear more. As I said, you're always so inspiring.
Thank you, Sarah. You're so kind. And I look forward to welcoming you one day at Viome.
Well, thank you, the two of you, Sarah and Naveen, for having this fantastic conversation. There was lots of chat in the chat, and I also took a couple polls, and it looks like a lot of people are ready to get started on their moonshot, and so you have inspired them. That is wonderful. And I want to thank everybody for joining us and spending their last hour here with us today. And as a thank you, I want to give everybody, I just got to do this little thing here. I want to give everybody a special gift, which is $100 off of a full body intelligence test. You can click on that. It will take you directly to the Viome website, and that discount code of Moonshot24 will automatically be in your cart when you check out with your full body intelligence test. We want to invite you to the Viome family if you have not started your health journey yet. And so, thank you two so much for giving us all this inspiration and wisdom. And I want to say Happy New Year again, and best of luck to everybody out there with your moonshot. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.